All right. You just watched Barry's update for today, and you are about to see him live. So, welcome to the Amera First, Amera Trust, and Amera Uno Money in the Streets 4-part series with Barry Habib. We did the long formal introduction. We had so many questions last week. We're not going to do that introduction again today. We're going to get right to it. Feel free to get those questions marked down at the bottom of your screen in the Zoom platform, and we will get those answered throughout the program if it's appropriate. Otherwise, we'll wait till the end, and we will get as many of those as we answered as we can with Barry. So, Barry, what's going on in the last 6 days since we saw you last? Holy Toledo.
Greg, it's great to see you. Yeah, since we last spoke, two Fed members have gone by the wayside. They were trading front-running activities, and they've been coming under question. Eric Rosengren out of Boston and Robert Kaplan out of Dallas. Both of them now have retired. They cite other things, but the real thing is they just didn't want to be grilled for their activities. You know, multi-million-dollar trades while they knew the Fed was buying mortgage-backed securities. Probably not the best thing in the world to be doing. I don't know how they didn't think that they would be questioned on this, but in either case, what that means for us is that these two members were somewhat what you would call hawkish, a little bit more conservative, less dovish, less accommodative. So who are they going to be replaced with? Now, Eric Rosengren out of Boston, he was Boston's Fed president. That seat votes next year in 2021. That's a voting member next year. And then Kaplan is in 2023, a voting member. So that means that if they're replaced with more accommodative people, who knows what's going to happen? 2022 is going to be a big year for the Fed. Is the Fed going to continue with this taper? They might not do it if the stock market throws a tantrum. And listen, I don't think it's going to be very easy for the Fed to at any time start hiking rates, but we'll see. Now, with regards to our chat today, we want to talk about what's going on in the housing market because this is very misunderstood. Now, there was something that came out today, and I want to tell you that I look at this as a little bit of an inflection point. You know, fortunately, we've been spot on housing for many years, probably the only one who's been as accurate on housing because there's so much misinformation and so much negativity on it, and people just don't understand it. We think that we have got a good handle on understanding the housing market, but something happened today, and nobody's talked about it, so I'll tell you what it was. There are two different reports that come out on the same day every month. There's the Case-Shillow appreciation report. That's the most accurate one out there. And then there's the FHFA appreciation report. Now, that only takes appreciation on homes that have a conforming mortgage on it. So because of that, these are homes that are, you know, on average, a little bit lower priced than the Case-Shillow numbers. Every single report we've seen, since I can remember, has seen the Case-Shillow numbers come out lower, and the FHFA numbers come out higher. And that FHFA numbers, because the lower priced homes, there was more demand for it. Today's report, while it showed Case-Shillow's numbers coming in 20% appreciation year over year, crazy, right? The FHFA numbers, which always have been higher, for the first time came in lower, just a little bit at 19%. But I think this is an inflection point. So what does this mean? This means that even buyers everywhere are going to have some limits as to how much they're going to chase. Doesn't mean that prices are going to go down here, but it does tell me that especially those who are more budget minded are starting to push back a little bit. And it tells me that we are near or at, in my opinion, this is the apex of the rate of annual appreciation at 20%. It doesn't mean prices go down. It's kind of like driving a car. If you're driving a car at 100 miles an hour, if you slow it down to 60, you're still moving forward, still appreciating. It's not like putting it in reverse and going backwards. That would be depreciation of prices going down. But now for the first time, I am seeing some potential risks out there that if rates rise a lot, they have risen, but not terribly, that's going to be a little bit of a headwind. And then if the amount of available people to buy a home continues to shrink because of the price appreciation and because of rates going higher, and if that number in a specific market shrinks beneath inventory that's available, that could start to be problematic. Now, we're a long way off from that, but I think we're seeing the very first sign, and I think it's a welcome sign because we don't want appreciation to keep accelerating. 20% per year is just too darn much. So that's where we are. But anyway, Greg, with your permission, I'm going to share my screen here and let's get into where we are. So hopefully you could all see that. And welcome and thank you.
We got it.
Great. Welcome and thank you to all of you that have joined. I know that your time is very valuable. So let's try and make it valuable today. So We want to talk about removing points of friction and achieving exponential growth. And what you see here is what's called an S curve. And most of us go through our business and we have linear growth. We grow it, we try and progress. We try and do the things that help us improve our business and grow our business. And then, like everybody else, we encounter a point of friction. Now, when most people encounter a point of friction, what do? They piss and moan and complain. But rather than do that, if we're able to remove those, first identify it, then remove it, then we get this exponential growth. Eventually it matures, so we have to do this in repeated fashion. Now, in my business, when I was a loan originator, I removed points of friction that I saw. I saw things that were going on. Loan officers were getting beat by reprices, meaning that they'd get a price, talk to their customer, and then suddenly intraday they were blindsided because the market moved and then pricing got worse and they had to either explain it to their customer or lose the transaction, or many other situations that were unpleasant. They were making poor lock decisions. They were locking loans in and then prices were getting better. And they just overall did not have any market knowledge whatsoever. They understood how to put a mortgage together, but a mortgage is so important. So I created something that alleviated that lack of confidence, anxiety, and time drain. I created a company called Mortgage Market Guide and sold that and grew it to a really powerful and ubiquitous company within the industry. When I got into the entertainment field, I was a lead producer and managing partner on Rock of Ages, which was a worldwide success. But when we were on Broadway, we were in a situation where we're trying to grow, trying to build a brand for ourselves. And I noticed when people would come into the theater, drinking was prohibited in the seats. So people would get upset because they weren't allowed to take their drink. They'd come in late, they'd wait online, spend a lot of money for a drink, and then they either had to throw it out or guzzle it down, not enjoy it, or miss part of the show. So I was like, why can't we just make them happy and let them bring their drinks in the seats? And I was told that that's not allowed on Broadway, never been done. So I lobbied and got it all taken care of so that we could do that, made the show a great experience. And now everyone does it. So by alleviating these points of friction, we were able to get exponential growth, and Rock of Ages became the 27th longest running show in history. And we had a worldwide recognition of the show. When I started a medical imaging company, I would notice that when people went for scans, they were very anxious because although the tech who was taking the scans could read it and know what it is, they were not able to communicate with the patient because the patient had to wait for their physician. I was like, why should people have to do that? That's anxiety. It causes stress. So I actually had a radiologist on site in my centers, and people loved it so much that we had so much business, we grew it to 3 centers before I sold it. Now, what you guys have experienced, whether you're in mortgage or real estate, is you've seen this occur with your business right now, because we removed a point of friction, and that was interest rates. And it caused real estate to go wild. It caused refinances to go wild. And the good thing about that is that we'll take all those gifts we can get. But what if we were to identify our own points of friction and then go about removing them? So one that we could easily see right now is there clearly is a lack of inventory. So what happens when there's a lack of inventory? Well, we know that people are bidding above asking price. And in fact, over 56% of the transactions right now have bids over asking price. And many of you probably experienced this. And look, I don't want to pay full price for anything, right? Neither do you. But it's even worse if you're paying more than somebody's asking for and you're in a competitive bid situation. Now, that's got to cause stress for a real estate agent, a mortgage professional. It's got to cause stress for that client in particular, because they don't really know how to evaluate this decision. So how do we evaluate it? Well, the first thing we have to do is understand the question that they should ask. Look, if I'm going to be paying, and think about it, if I'm going to be paying more than asking price, right? Well, then I want to know how long it will take for the value of the home to meet what I've paid for it, for the value of that home to come up to what I'm spending for it. And fortunately, your AmeriFirst professional has an exact way to do that by knowing what the forecasted appreciation is for every market. And they can help you explain this to your customer. Look, imagine you're the customer. And imagine for a second, the customer saying, well, look, I'm all, getting emotional and getting caught up in it and frenzied. And I'm bidding 5,000 more, 5,000 above that, this and that. I'm bidding against somebody else. If I got to go higher, when do I stop? What's the limit? Can we egg them on and cheer them on? Or do we say, hey, listen, here's how long it's going to take? They don't even know to ask that question. So if you said to them, listen, let my AmeriFirst professional help show you that if you bid this much, this is how long it will take, then they can make a proper judgment. Let me give you a real life example of one that we did. Here's the current asking price is $499. So let's call it 500,000. The estimated value, and your AmeriFirst professional has a way to instantly show you what the value is with an MB estimate. So it's estimated about 502. So it's right in line. But in order to get this home, they've got to put up another $20,000 and they've got to bid this thing up to 519. So they're going to go about $20,000 more than the value of the home is. The question is, in any market, in any zip code, how long will it take in this zip code 33635 for the value of the home, which is currently, let's call it 500, to come up to 520? And the answer is 4 months based on what's happening in that market. Now, this was a no-brainer for the customer who said, yeah, 4 months after I close, I've got the value of what I'm paying for it. Absolutely going to do that. And if it was 6 months, 8 months, probably just fine. Whoops. Sorry about that, team. 6 months, 8 months, probably just fine. But what if it was 6 years or 7 years? Well, that probably would not be something that they would jump at so quickly. They would have to at least think about that and evaluate that. So we're giving that customer the ability to do this, and it looks great. And then what we also will do is show them what they're going to be making over the next 5 years on that home as far as added profitability. This makes it very easy for the customer to say, well, you know what? I don't want to spend $20,000 more than they're asking, but it seems to make sense to do so because within 4 months, I'll make that back. And then I've got $111,000 that I'm going to make as a profit over the next 5 years. Let's move forward. Now, sometimes we have to make higher offers and things don't easily turn out to fall into place because, as you probably all know, many people need a mortgage, and the mortgage amount is going to be based upon the appraised value of the property or the purchase price. But the trick is here, it's whichever is lower. So on that $520,000 purchase price, they're only going to be able to borrow a percentage of the appraised value, which was roughly $500,000. So that means they got to come up with some more money, some more cash. And while they may be willing to and wanting to, they're desirous, they're willing, they're able to qualify, maybe they just don't have the cash. Maybe they can't get it or borrow it and they just tapped out. What happens here? Well, here's what you can do. And I know this sounds a little bit unusual, but when somebody takes out a mortgage, what does everybody ask? They ask for the lowest rate, right? That's what they want. Everybody wants the lowest rate. But instead of the lowest rate, let's get a better strategy. And what they could do is, instead of taking out, let's just say on a $400,000 mortgage, a rate of 3%, which would give them the $1,686 payment, what if you took out a higher interest rate? And a higher interest rate would give you, let's call it 3 3/8, would give you a credit. So the lender actually issues a credit towards your closing costs because you're taking a higher interest rate. In this particular case, it'd be $5,000 or $6,000. Now that's money that's created out of thin air. And here's the best part about it. You don't have to pay it back. So you heard me right. Here's $5,000 or $6,000 and you don't have to pay it back. It's not added to your loan, doesn't increase your loan amount. You don't have to pay it back. You are not liable for it. You're not responsible for it. So it's really creating money out of thin air. Now, is there a catch? Well, yes. What's the catch? At 3 3/8, your payment is going to be $82 a month more. Instead of $1,686, it'll be $1,768. So yeah, you're paying a little bit more, but if they qualify for it, if they want to do it, but they just don't have a means to do it, this is a wonderful way for you to bridge the gap, because remember, you don't have to pay that money back. You do have the monthly payment, which is increased now to 3 3/8 from 3%. So that's $82 a month more that you're spending because your interest rate's higher. But here's the thing. And many times people put less than 20% down. As you know, that means they might need something called mortgage insurance or a private mortgage insurance known as PMI. If you can avoid that PMI, well, then you'll make up more than the $82 a month. Or there's certain breakpoints. PMI is not the same. If you put 15% down as opposed to 10% down, or 10 as opposed to 5, your PMI is greatly reduced. And you could probably make up more than the $82 a month. So simply by working with your AmeriFirst professional and employing this amazing strategy, you can win a deal instead of losing it. You can get the client in the home of their dreams. You can get them an extra, in this case, $6,000 that they don't have to pay back. And you might actually save the money every month if they were going to be in a situation of paying mortgage insurance, which many, many people are. 58% of purchases require mortgage insurance. Think about that, 58%. So there's a good possibility that you might not even be spending any more money every month. You could actually save money each month. So a wonderful tool for you to use. Now, many of you have buyers who get discouraged. And listen, I don't envy the hard work a real estate agent does. I think that real estate agents, when you're showing homes, it can be quite exhausting. You know, the client has to be dragged all over town, visit many different homes. You know, it's not easy to find a good fit for them when they get excited about it. And even if you do, it's so competitive out there that you can lose transactions. So it's easy for your customer to get discouraged. And if your customer does get discouraged, then what they might do is they might say, hey, listen, I'll wait 6 months and come back. I'm sure all of you have heard that before. Now, you know that who knows if the customer does come back at all, right? But what the customer is thinking is that I'll wait 6 months and see if the market's better. What they don't understand is that while they're on the sidelines waiting, the market isn't, and there is a cost to wait for that customer. So have your AmeriFirst professional illustrate for you what that cost of waiting is, so the customer gets a real idea. Here's a real example where by waiting 6 months, the value of that home goes up, even if interest rates stay the same. And by the way, it looks, based upon what we're seeing from the Fed, that interest rates could go up a little bit. That would mean that the monthly payment, without even interest rates changing, just based on the value going up in 6 months, would be about $160 a month more, plus the appreciation on the home, plus the amortization. So that would cost them to wait 6 months, $26,000 and $159 more every month. So as a real estate agent, if you and your AmeriFirst professional presented this to them, and you could do it in tandem here, you could say, you know what, if you wait 6 months, it does cost you quite a bit more. So are you sure you don't want to keep looking? Are you sure you don't want to bid a little bit more on this home to try and win this home? So we're not in a position where 6 months later on the identical home, you're spending $26,000 more and $159 a month. This really is one of the best ways to illustrate to the customer, because the fact of the matter is they just don't know. And this is a point of friction. So we could educate them, we can remove this point of friction, and we can experience exponential growth. These three things that we've just spoken about, whether it's bid over ask or a lack of dollars, or in this particular case, a buyer who's discouraged because it's certainly hard to find a home. You know, I think the consumer sentiment report that just came out said that buying a home was something that was very stressful for people, and many of them said that this is a very difficult time to buy a home. Well, we agree. It's not easy right now. Even though interest rates are great, and even though the appreciation in the future is great, buying a home is hard, and it is not a good time to buy a home. But you know what? The rewards are amazing. It's not a good time because it's difficult, not because financially it's not rewarding. You know what else is difficult? It's difficult exercising. It's difficult dieting, but the results are great. If people were to just stick it through and see why they're sticking it through, if they see what the results are, you can keep them having the motivation and the incentive to stay with you instead of losing that client. Now, you should do something else for them too, which I think that you should do this with every single one of your listings, because it'll only take your AmeriFirst professional literally less than 30 seconds to do this for you. And what this is a real estate report card. And you should show this to every one of your prospective buyers. If you're doing open houses, you should be showing this. And what this does is it shows you the listing. You just put the MLS number. It's that easy. Has a picture of the home, tells you what the median home price is in the zip code and what the cost per square foot is. It also tells you what appreciation has been for the last 60 years, the last 10 years, the last 5 years, but also what the forecast is for the next 1 year and 5 years. And then it shows you what the value of that home will appreciate to every single year. Now, it'll also show you where this ranks around the country for affordability, median income, historical appreciation, for job growth. Then it will give you things like what the demographics are, how many homes for sale for every 1,000 people, how much inventory has dropped in the last year, in the last month, and what the demographics are based upon age classes. So you could see if this is your first-time home buyers that are going to be coming into the market, it's the largest segment in this marketplace. So therefore, you know there's going to be a lot of activity. Then there's a different report here that shows what the total population is in the county, how many renters there are, and then of these people renting, how many of them could actually afford to buy a home, but they're still renting. So this tells you what a huge opportunity it is for these people to purchase a home. Then it tells you of this demographic, how many people will be forming a household. That means how many people are going to be leaving mom and dad and getting a place in their own name, whether it's buying or renting, and turning on the electric in their own name. So in this particular market, there's 212,000 people in the age group between 27 and 35. About 20,000 of them will form their own household. But we know in this market that there's a 55% home ownership rate. That means that 11,000 people will get a home that they're purchasing. But meanwhile, builders are only putting up 9,000 or 10,000 homes, which suggests a housing shortage for this market. That's going to mean that you're probably going to see appreciation continue because more people want to buy, then homes are going to be made available. And then the job market here, as you can see, is growing. This dip here is due to COVID, and you can see what the income is, and you can see affordability levels. So this is a wonderful tool for you to use, and it could be co-branded between you and your AmeriFirst professional. This is something that everybody wants to see for every single zip code and help that customer understand it. Now, what we're also seeing a lot of is buying.
Hey, Barry.
Yes.
Hey, Barry. I'm going to interject real quick. A couple of things. First, we had our hour of power last Friday, and we have our salespeople, and we talked about, we had a success story. And that success story, I just want to share it while you were just talking about the report cards. This loan officer had 8 or 9 of his top agents sitting in the room watching our show on Wednesday. And I think you said not 30 seconds last time. I think you said 10 seconds. And sure enough, one of those agents said, "All right, Tito, let's go. You got 10 seconds." And he's like, "Well, okay, give me a couple zip codes." And sure enough, literally within maybe not quite 10, but maybe 20, he was able to provide all sorts of data and went over the top, got a couple of deals because of it. I mean, it's just great story, great success story. But I want to share that with you. But also we have a question here. Kyle asked, can you have Barry explain what lost amortization is, please?
When you make your mortgage payment, had they have purchased that home instead of waiting 6 months, part of the mortgage payment, unlike renting, is principal. That's your own money. So when you take a look at and I'm going to show you that more in detail here, so your timing is great on that. I'm going to talk about that in detail here. But part of the mortgage payment is your own money that you're just paying down the mortgage. So that's building equity for yourself. So that's what the lost amortization is. So now it is hard to buy a home. We know that. So people are going to be discouraged and they're going to talk about renting. And Craig, you had mentioned right at the very top when you took a little excerpt from our opening, or from our update, I should say, in your opening, about rents going up. So Apartment List came out with their data, and they showed that rents are going up by 20% per year. Just in 2021, since January, they've gone up 16.5%. And they're going up at a rate of like 2% a month. I think it was 2.1% month over month. That's no picnic. But then once you get into that home, that's the initial rent. Then every year the increase is 5.8%. Let's call it 6%. Now it's different in every market, but people don't think about that. At least if you get a home and it's a fixed rate mortgage, assuming, then maybe your taxes change a little bit, but the payment is by and large pretty stable, as opposed to renting where that payment's going to continue to go up. And a big chunk of the payment, as we're going to see right here, is principal. That's amortization. That's reduction of the mortgage. And that is extraordinarily powerful. And it's something that most people, the vast majority, don't understand it. And almost no one talks about it. So let's talk about this particular example. Should I buy or should I rent? Which is better? Let's look at something here. So the home price is $400,000. It's 2,800 square feet, and the taxes are $4,500. Now, if I were comparing this to a comparable rent, the rent would be $2,500 a month. Year over year, in this particular zip code, rents are going up at 5.5% a year, with the national average being 6%. So rents aren't even going up as strong. So that's a good thing. And $2,500 is the comparable market rent. But let's just say I'm getting a deal. Person likes me so much and they want me to rent for them so badly that they say, I'm going to slash the rent for you. And I'm going to give you a rent $400 below market at $2,100 per month rent. It's a pretty good deal. Now, should I buy or should I rent? Which is better? Now, when your customer asks you this question, shouldn't we be able to answer that for them? I mean, after all, aren't we the professional? Aren't we the expert? Shouldn't we be able to give them the advice of suggesting what's a better plan for them to choose, of buying or renting? We should. That's where we can separate ourselves from our competition. So thanks to AmeriFirst, you can do that. Let me show you how easy it is. So let's assume the mortgage rate, let's pick a rate of 3.25%, 10% down, and they're expected to be there for 9 years. So you have everything you need to know now to make this evaluation, but how many of your competitors are making the evaluation for them? Let me show you how the right way to do it is. So we know the rent is $2,500 a month is what it should be, but here they're getting it for 21. Now there is renter's insurance, and we know here that rents are going up at 5.5% per year. Now, with regards to the home, this is a $400,000 home. It's 2,792 square feet. The cost is $143 a square foot. The property taxes, we already know what they are, so you don't have to find them, are $4,500. Home insurance is $117 a month. Property taxes in this market go up every year. On average, it doesn't happen every year, but the average per year is it goes up 2%. Sometimes it doesn't go up for 6 or 7 years, and then you get hit with an increase. So property taxes are going up. So we're telling them about that. And here's something that nobody even talks about in the evaluation. If you're renting, you don't have any home repairs. Here, you probably will have to worry about making repairs. So the AmeriFirst tool allows you to put in based upon what that market is. It already knows what the average repair cost you can expect to be. Now, while you're not going to be paying this every month, if you're going to evaluate this, you want to just factor it in so you know what my repair costs might be. So here, unlike anybody else, we're giving them, hey, let's account for property tax increases. Here we're saying, let's account for repair costs on a property you own, because if you're renting, you don't have repairs. And let's also factor in when you're renting, you don't have to worry about cost to sell a home. You just say bye-bye after my lease. If you own the home, there's a high probability you might have to ask one of you lovely folks who are real estate agents to list the home and pay a very fair fee of 6%. Let's factor that in. Now, what we also want to do is we want to talk about what type of loan you're getting. So in this particular case, on the $400,000 home, let's say they're putting 10% down. It's a 360 loan, 30-year fixed. And that means they need mortgage insurance and closing costs. Let's factor all that in. And then how long are you going to be there, Mr. and Mrs. Client? They told us they think they're going to be in this home 9 years. We know what the historical appreciation is per year. We know what the forecast is. So now when we compare this, if they were to buy the home, it's going to cost them about $23.63 a month. If they're going to rent, it's going to be about $250 a month less. So, hey, it's cheaper to rent than buy. That's what people say. Maybe you should be renting because it's cheaper, except for a few things. Remember that rent's going to go up at 5.5% a year. Now, we know that the taxes are going to go up. So this blue line goes up a little bit based upon the tax, but the purple line is going to go up a lot more because your rent goes up. You can see by year 4, you're going to already be paying more to rent than own the home. Probably a little bit by year 3, maybe about even, but you're already paying more here. So you're only saving money the first 2 years. But hold on a second. You see, your payment is principal and interest. So while the difference over time is on your mortgage payment versus your rent in totality, a little bit more expensive to begin with, you're going to be much cheaper than renting over the 9 years by $29,000. And then the amortization gain in this case, because you're paying down that loan. You started with a loan at $260. 9 years later, you've got $285,000 balance. That's the principal that you're paying in your mortgage. So you made an extra $75,000 here. Now, what about appreciation? Well, if that home goes up 4.7% per year, doesn't seem like a lot, especially today with what's going on. Well, then you would make at just 4.7% a year, $208,000 there. Now, what about the tax benefit? This is where you have to be careful because most people think there's a tax benefit with buying a home. Not much compared to renting based on the new tax laws. In fact, if you're married, you rarely get a tax benefit. You get some if you're single, but there's no tax benefit here. Now, when you sell, let's take into consideration a 3% commission on the future value of the home. That's a negative $36,000. So what's the bottom line here? And it's this: if you buy this home as opposed to renting, you're going to make an extra $267,000 by doing so. Now, how many of you would have even guessed that? And we're the professionals that are in this industry. How many of our customers could even fathom that? They're just looking at the saving $250 a month for the first year and saying, maybe I should rent. But as it turns out, this will show you every year how much better it is, if it is better, to buy than rent. And in this exact scenario, after 1 year, it's $4,000 better, 2 years, $23,000 better, and so on, as you could see. So Mr. and Mrs. Client, yeah, you expect to be there 9 years, but even if you're only there for 4 years, it's a $75,000 difference. This is the way to turn that evaluation into something where the customer really sees the opportunity and wants to move forward as opposed to renting. And you have the ability to do that. Your AmeriFirst professional could put this in just about 1 minute's worth of work, and you could co-brand it with them so it looks like you're presenting this as well. Now, folks, a lot of this has to do with the belief system that you have. You know, this is a little bit of a different way of working and presenting than most people are accustomed to. And the worst thing that we can do, team, is say, oh, that's a good idea, that's a good idea, and then just go right back to doing what we're doing because our belief system just makes us go back to what we were doing. The key amongst really successful people is to identify these opportunities and then take action. And as I said, your AmeriFirst professional makes it so easy to do that because all you have to do is ask them for these things and they'll give you these reports. All you have to do is say, hey, here's the listings I have. Can you do a real estate report card for these? In a few seconds, I'll do it. I've got somebody who's thinking about renting versus buying. Can you just give me that report? Yes. I've got someone that needs to bid over asking price, and we want to evaluate to see if it's right. And instantly they'll do that for you. Give them the MLS number, boom. It's just a different way of thinking. And our belief system, for whatever reason, holds us back. Listen, I'm going to give you something that's an exercise here just to have a little fun with. So here's what I want you to do. I want you for a minute, if you can, just close your eyes for a minute and just imagine for a moment in your mind that you're in your car and you're driving your car. And what you're about to do is you're about to take your car down the road somewhere that you're familiar with, and you pull up to a stop sign. Now, I want you to think about that. Look at that stop sign in your mind's eye. And on the count of 3, I want you to say out loud what color that stop sign is. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Now, did you say red? If you said red, like just about everybody.
I did.
Okay, well, you probably think that you're right, except stop sign isn't red. It's red and white. So, okay, so you might say, all right, Barry, you got me on a technicality there. Let's take another stab at that. I'm going to give you one more so we make sure you get it right. So here's what I want you to do. Now, this time, close your eyes one more time and you're driving in your car. And this time, what I want you to do is pull up to a yield sign. I want you to look at that yield sign in your mind's eye. And on the count of 3, here's what I want you to answer. What I'm going to ask you is, what colors is that yield sign? 1, 2, 3. Now, did you say yellow and black? If you did, like almost everyone, don't feel bad, because a yield sign isn't yellow and black. Believe it or not, a yield sign is also red and white. But isn't it funny how our belief system has us so convinced and so believing that things are one way when they really aren't? And that's why I'm trying to say to you, what we need to do is think a little differently how we approach our customers. This is a really highly competitive marketplace. And what we're trying to do is gain that advantage. So, Greg, with that, let's turn it over to you for some questions. We went just about exactly 30 minutes, and we want to leave another 10 minutes here for some question and answer. So I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, indeed. I did say yellow and black. I have to admit, I was right in that same category, and it is amazing how that works. And the other thing that I've noticed too is, you know, especially with all of the tools that we have for the AmeriFirst, AmeriTrust, AmeriUno, loan officers have at their fingertips, is the ability to show what the power of time really represents. And I don't think, to your point, you've said it, but I don't think people really understand. I mean, you gave that example last week about the penny and doubling and how much that makes and what it's worth after X period of time. Same thing with the 9 years. I mean, the numbers are really just staggering, and people don't put it in perspective. And the tools that we have available to us just make it so easy to use and to really understand the pure value of time. And everybody's focused on today. So
Very much so. Very much so. So do you folks that have any questions, just put it in the Q&A or
Yeah.
in the chat box.
Yeah, exactly. And we do have one coming in, but I want to also invite Dave and Doug and Ron to join here as well. And
So
I
I
know we
see
had
a
a lot of
question.
questions we didn't get to. So
Yeah, I see a question. How does buy rent model work in a down market where home prices are depreciating instead of appreciating? Does it still favor buying? Well, that really, the answer is it depends. So what is it going to be dependent upon? Certainly appreciation is a major factor. How much is the level of appreciation, if any? How much is the level of depreciation? How long will the depreciation last? What is your time in the home? Did it appreciate for a while and then depreciate? Did it depreciate and then come back to it? So it really depends. And then what is the level of amortization that you're gaining? Because that has to be factored in too. What's the cash flow? That first part we showed, the amount you're paying every month to purchase versus how much the rents are going up. So that's why you really have to build it into that model. And when you do, you can see in some cases, it might not favor buying, but there are a lot of positives on the buying camp that over time will allow that buying. Chances are the longer they're going to be in the home, the more favorable it'll be towards buying. So good question. Any other questions in the Q&A, or if you want to put it in the chat, you can do chat too, whatever you prefer.
yeah, we don't have a chat. I don't think there's a chat on this particular Zoom feature. So we do like the Q&A. But so tell me, Barry, obviously a lot has happened over the last 6 days since we met. Where do you see rates going short term, the stock market? Is it time to bail? Is it time to call up those brokers and put it into cash? What do we do?
Well, I'm a little concerned that over the short term that interest rates might hover a little bit higher. It looks as if the marketplace is at a point now where we've done what you'd call some technical damage. That's if you look at the charts, there's floors of support, ceilings of resistance, where we've kind of looked at the probability that rates will remain a little bit elevated. I mean, look, on a relative basis, it's still amazing, right? But not as cheap as they were. So they're a little bit higher. I think that we just have to be on guard. I'd be looking at something like the 10-year treasury and seeing if we can remain beneath 160 on the 10-year treasury. And I think we will. But that's about as bad as things get interest rate wise, in my humble opinion. There's also on the stock market side, you asked me for, it seems like right now, the stock market, there's a lot of fear. Part of it is seasonality. A lot of the crashes that we've seen have happened this time of year, end of September into October. There's some seasonality that causes some concern and fear. In addition to that, there's also worries about an increase to capital gains. So there might be some selling ahead of the capital gains increase. If the capital gains increase that we're seeing from the current administration isn't going to be as onerous as was previously thought, the next question is, it might be like a 5% increase going from 20 to 25%. And then you got the Obama tax of 3.8 on top of that if you make over 200,000. So it will probably, I'm sure we're going to see an increase, but the question is when? Is it going to be as of retroactive to April? Is it going to be retroactive as to September? Because there's a part of it that says it'll be effective when it's introduced. You can make a case that it was introduced in April. You can make a case it was introduced in September. Or do they say it's just clean for 2022, January 1? It's interesting. So we don't know how that's going to take place. I think that right now the stock market has had a heck of a run. And it seems that maybe a little bit of a correction might be due. But the thing about the stock market is expensive as it is, people might say, okay, well, what's your alternative? Where else are you going to put money? We're not getting any yield out there. So maybe I'm kind of almost forced to put money in the stock market. So those are some of the negatives and positives. Very, very hard to determine right now. where that stock market will react. But it seems to me over the short term, it's probably the biases to the downside. Maybe towards the end of the year comes back with a vengeance.
Thank you.
Hey, Barry, it's
Doug?
Doug. Yeah. Man, first of all, incredible information. Appreciate it. I know that a lot of our loan officers have taken a course, your certified mortgage, is this called CMA?
AMA.
Yes, the CMA. I've had a few real estate team leads that run massive volume, 1,000, 2,000 units a year. And they're asking me, is there basic financials tools that they can sign up for with you to get the basics that we're seeing today where they can get some kind of designation?
Oh, so many realtors have taken it. Just go to becomecma.com. It is, it's life-changing. It'll give you just even for your own trading, for your own investments, understanding all this. I mean, really, it should be what we all understand, right? If we're going to be beating our competition. I saw something come in question-wise. John Insco said, "Are people who abandoned their homes in between 2008 to 2012 upset now? $300,000 home is worth $5." Yeah, it could be even more than that, John. It's when you take a look at what's happened in the housing market, yeah, they're definitely going to be, if they could have held on to their home, but they got scared, they probably are second guessing that now. And I do think the housing market stays supported, but probably not as hot as it's been. And that's a welcome thing. It's just been too hot. Then another question from James Gaffney. In 2003 to 2008, stated income loans represent a large portion of buyers' loan products and supported the easy access to money. True. Yeah. And stated income loans, meaning, they're not really verifying, just saying what your income is. When it was eliminated, the market reacted and demanded higher qualified buyers to get a loan. Are we in a place where people just need more money to compete for a home given the population demand? Well, that's a good question. We certainly don't see the underwriting guidelines being loosened to the point where it was. I mean, in 2006, you could almost go to a mirror and go, here you go, approved. What did you need? A 580 FICO, nothing down, no income, no asset. I mean, heck, what could go wrong with that loan, right? So that was just craziness, and we're not going back there. So the vintage of loans is performing very, very well. So I don't see that happening. But I like the ability of people to continue to pay their mortgages the way they have them now. I don't see us running into any kind of a similarity to those periods of time where we had the housing crash.
Hey, Barry.
Yes, good to see you, Ron.
Hey, buddy. By the way, you're mesmerizing every time I listen to you. I just sit there and take pages of notes. I was so appreciate all of the information, all of the tools of the trade that you've created over a long period of time that make us do much better and look a lot better to our customers. So appreciate that. I was just wondering, since you are the crystal ball man, right? Have you wrapped your head around this $3.5 trillion of spending, and how does the world absorb that? And what is the ripple effect or the collateral damage, so to speak? How does that factor into the next year to 2 to 3 years, best that you can use that crystal ball skills that you have to put a spin on that?
So I do think about it a lot, and it's not just what they're talking about, whether it's a 1 trillion spending plan or a $3.5 trillion spending plan, or if it's 1 and then another 2, 1, another 3.5. These are crazy numbers. And this is on the heels of just in March, 1.9 trillion. I mean, that was 6 months ago, 1.9 trillion. 4 months before that, it was 900 billion. 8 months before that, it was 2.8 trillion. There's a lot of money in the system. And then the Fed's balance sheet at the same time has gone from 4 to almost $9 trillion. Now we use trillion and we get kind of numb. But if you were to say, okay, Barry, we're going to do a business deal, all cash for $100,000. Bring me a stack of $100 bills. Here you go. You get a briefcase, you come into the room, you open it up. It's very, very anticlimactic because it's just a 4-inch stack of $100 bills is $100,000. You know that? If you could take $100 bills and stack them up 4 inches high, you've got $100,000. So just one stack of them. Now, How about if it were $1 million? Well, $1 million is if you could take them from the floor and stack them up 40 inches high. So a little bit more than 3 feet. If you could do that, you're a millionaire. $100 bills, stack them up that high. Now a billion, you'd have to stack them up to the Empire State Building. Twice. Okay, so a billion's a big deal. But a trillion, if I took $1 trillion in $100 bills and stacked them up, if I could, and tilted it on its side. Now, this is not the long way. This is just compressed and stacked, okay? It would go from where I am right now in Palm Beach, Florida, to Kalamazoo, Michigan. That's $1 trillion. And we are throwing these debts out there of, if I put the $100 bill side by side, you can go around the world 25 times for $1 trillion. Around the world 25 times. It's an awful lot of money that we're printing here. So what's the result of it? It's a long way of saying that it's not going to end well. The debt that comes with this, because it has to be paid, results in an economic drag. Economic drag because, as you can see, you have to raise taxes, which just sucks the lifeblood out of the economy. Taxes do no good. I mean, a certain portion you need, but they should always be at a minimum, because all it does is take money that would go into the economy that would be spent and just sucks it dry. And then in order to make up for that, you have to charge higher prices, which again sucks it dry. So the tax is a very inefficient way of having economic activity. But it's not just that. It's the payment on the debt. The payment on the debt takes money out of what the government can do for good things. I mean, imagine this. Imagine a family who can't go out to dinner because they've got so much debt, right? See, let me give you an example. Let's just take a family that wants to buy a car. You could buy something one or two ways. I could say, I'm going to save up money and then go buy that car for, let's just say, $60,000. Or heck, I'm an adult. I want instant gratification. I want it right now. So I'm going to go buy that car now, and then I'll pay it off with a loan. So it's the same thing. I get it today and I'm paying it off, as opposed to waiting and then buying it cash. So credit creates instant activity. So it spurs economic activity right away. I mean, think about it. When you buy that car, the salesperson made money, the dealership, the manufacturer, everybody made money. So there's a lot of money going around. But then what's left after the purchase? After that wears off, because that's very short term, that family now has about $1,000 a month less that they could spend in going out to dinner, in buying furniture, and buying clothing. It's less for the next 5 or 6 years that they will have less to do with. It's the same for the government. The government has got itself in so much debt that it's so much less that they could do to create good things to happen in the economy. So this debt drags down economic activity. The one good thing for us is it usually means it holds rates lower, because you're not getting that economic activity.
Hey, Barry, I got a question for
All
you.
right, I know we need to wrap it up. Yeah, Dave, go ahead. We got one last
One
time.
more.
One
Let's
last
do one
question.
more.
Yeah, quick question for you, if there's not one from the field. And I wanted you to lend your spin on this event. And it's about the forbearance. I think there's probably folks out, some of our realtor partners, as well as some of our lending partners that are out there. A lot of chatter about what's going to happen. Forbearance, these plans start coming off now, and they're going to keep going for coming off as we go forward. We talked a little bit about bubble. You did last time, but give your spin, because I think some people don't know if they should be afraid of that or how to look at that.
Don't be afraid of forbearance, because there was 5.6 million homes in forbearance. That's down to 1.56 million homes in forbearance was the last count. Of the ones that got out of forbearance, 0.65 ended in a short sale or a foreclosure. 24%, they were paying their payments anyway. Another quarter of the people didn't need forbearance. They just used it as a safety valve. A big group of people either sold their home or refinanced their home. So we have trimmed forbearance now down by 2/3 without any hiccups. The remaining 1/3, look, it might result in a little more foreclosure, because maybe this is a little harder group to deal with. But if you have a few extra thousand homes that come on the market, and listen, I'm very sensitive to it. One foreclosure is too much. We don't want any family to suffer. But from an economic standpoint, that would be welcome inventory, number one. And would it upset anything? No, it'd be like taking a can of water and dumping it on the beach. It's going to be absorbed very, very quickly. It's not going to cause a flood. You know, the inventory is so sparse now. I mean, you guys know that.
And isn't there some equity sitting in some of those houses? I mean, we're not going to have a big inventory bath. It's not going to happen,
It's not
right?
going to be a bath, because what's going to happen is that people have inventory, that have equity to protect.
Right.
So the amount of value that homes have appreciated in the past couple of years, 30, 40% appreciation, what's going to happen to that is that that's equity. They're not going to just say, hey, foreclose upon me. They're going to say, I'll either sell it or I'll beg, borrow, and steal to make the payments because I want to protect that equity. It's not 2009 where you owed 200,000 on a home that was worth 150,000.
Yep.
Thank you, team.
Thank you,
Oh,
Barry.
yeah, great
all of
stuff as always. Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
All right, that brings part two to a close. We're going to have about a 10-day break, and we're going to go part 3 on Friday, October 8th. Hard to imagine it's October here in a couple of days, but we will see you all back here October 8th, 1 o'clock Eastern. Be sure to reach out to your AmeriFirst, AmeriTrust, and AmeriUno loan officers for all of the data and all of the wonderful tools that Barry showed and talked about. So until then, everybody have a great rest of your day. We'll see you back here next Friday the 8th. Take care, everyone.